Hi, hi, everybody. Welcome to Create a World. My name is Tantra Mott, and we have a few of the collaborators with us today. We have Victoria, Electra, Deb, and Lori. Two collaborators are not with us today, Liz and Janice. I asked for today because in these times, there really is a shift in our relationship to existence. And one of the major shifts in relationship to our existence is we don't know what the truth is. That there are many versions of the truth now, and human beings are fairly driving themselves crazy trying to figure out what is the truth. But in a beautiful way, human beings are going back to their point of origin. And their point of origin is storytelling. And storytelling isn't about a truth. Storytelling is about a lived experience. Can you all hear the dog?
A very tiny bit.
Lola is going crazy out the door. So we're going to have Lola accompanying us for a while. She's the next door neighbor's dog. She's about that big with a voice that transcends time. So we're including her in our conversation. But Create a World was envisioned. It was envisioned in a mystical manner. It was envisioned as something to do, and something to do that gave something a place. And several of us decided to give that something a place. And that's a great mystery. The great mystery is people try to figure out why they're doing something. But truthfully, if you feel called to do something, you should just go do it. Because it's your story. It's not just yours to do, it's part of your story. So those of us that are collaborators are part of another larger group of people that are doing what is ours to do, individually and collectively. So we're living a story. And just like the Old Testament or the Bhagavad Gita or other stories that people look at for wisdom and look at for ideas about how to live, all those people were living a story. They didn't know they'd end up in a book, by the way. And we probably won't end up in a book, but neither will you. But you're still living a story. So I'm a mystic, a seer, and a prophetess, and I just am that. And this isn't a world where that's a common occupation. And but part of the interest in that realm, in that genre, is to be in the visions of humanity, to be in the journey of the visions of humanity. So I've had the incredible good fortune to walk with visionaries and to be part of their journey. And it has been my absolute joy. I'll be 77 Sunday, May 28th. And I can't believe it looking back as a small child that 3 years old, because I still remember that moment, having this sense of future that I had no words for, an urge. It wasn't organized into thought. And looking back, I can see that urge was followed. And I'm not the only one. I know the people on the screen. I know others not on the screen. And the one thing that creates a world is following our urges, following our visions. It doesn't matter if it's the vision of a good family or the vision of a healthy body or the vision of a good workplace for your employees, or if you've taken on the whole globe or the whole planet, or in my case, the whole cosmos. It's all part of the beauty of being human, is to be a visionary. So my birthday wish for all of you watching this and all of you that will watch it, is that you surround yourself with visionaries and that you embrace their journey as part of your story, as part of a great story of being human. Otherwise, we have no sense of self. We're only at the effect of the world around us. And the unique function of a visionary is that they somehow make it in the face of the world around them. And you have it's like a visionary becomes like the sad horse, and where he's so loved by creation. His fur is rubbed off and one of his eyes is out and he looks flat, but he's been useful. And visionaries are very, very useful. So that's how I wanted to start today. And I'm also going to read Janice, who's one of our collaborators. She can't be with us today. She's busy in another meeting, finishing her vision of a piece of work she's done with Newfield. And so she asked me to read her story. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to turn it over to the other women present to say theirs. So let me just read that to you. Janice Cornetti, my vision and my journey. My vision is simple, while also a deep, deep longing for me. Life is beautiful, full of discovery, meaning, growth, and joy. Human beings thrive in concert with the thriving of all life on this planet. We live in harmony with our fellow human beings, our planet, our plant and animal kin, our celestial kin, and the powers and forces of creation that unfold us. My journey will soon mark its 57th year. It has been a journey of embracing joyful service while disengaging from the paradigm of self-sacrifice, finding that which loves me and letting that love guide my life, learning to say no so that my yeses have power and meaning behind them, learning to tend to my own needs so I can thrive and give back. My love started with animals. This grew into a love of nature, since that's where many of the animals are, and a desire to connect with and be a steward for Gaia, for the mother. As I turned away from the Christian church, I began a spiritual quest and moved beyond organized religion. I learned about indigenous people and explored their understandings of God, of spirit. I developed an appreciation for closeness to nature and for ways that life could be more simple, more meaningful. I spent over 30 years in education, and in particular working with public schools as a high school teacher and then a coach for teachers. It was through this work, and especially what happened to schools during the pandemic, that I heard the human soul crying out for freedom, for community, for being understood. I also spent my life as an artist, an actor, a director, a writer, a musician. It is through art I've explored that boundless territory of the human existence, pushed it to its edges, bathed in its tears, listened to its heartbeat and its ache to be known. And so as I move into the next phase of my journey, I am moving into a deeper exploration of what it is to inhabit a human life. I've written and am performing a solo show with the purpose of giving people the room, the courage to step into and live the life that is meant to be theirs. I'm developing new work as a coach with a focus of supporting people in exploring and being the being they long to be. And I'm continuing to explore how our antiquated systems of schooling can transform into systems that support true learning, where people are empowered to thrive. The field of Tantra Mud and Create a World are cornerstones in the foundation of my journey. I am blessed to be in their company, to walk with them, and to bathe in their light. Beautiful.
Wow.
Okay, over to you, Deb. You're the longest in line of having known me,
Woo!
and your mic was open.
Okay.
That was really beautiful, Janice, when you're watching this. That was really beautifully articulated. I think it's interesting. I don't go through life thinking this is my vision, this is my vision. But I have been noticing lately in the last, I'd say 2 years, the caught places and the places where it almost got took down. So that has really helped me in this conversation define, or that's, I suppose, put words to what my vision is. And there's a lot that's similar to what Janice wrote. I really have been unable to disengage from going after what makes the heart sing. There's just certain things that I can't not do or be. And that's not like a noble statement or whatever. It's just become kind of interesting to notice. And then and those things for me have included having people be aware of who they are. I mean, their magnificence. I mean, their beauty, their strength, their God nature, and just put whatever term in there for the powers and forces that are greater than us, and which I'm certain actually love us. The most of them really love us. And it's just part of, human beings can see ourselves, then our household, just a little bit out. And most of us go as far as nature and being in harmony with nature or the planet. But there really are energies and forces beyond that also, which are also part of us and nature and our households and whatever, in ways we're just beginning to discover. And they love us. And that is one of the pieces of my vision and my nature that's never been squashable. The interesting part in the last couple of years, 2 to 3, I think, is that I had to discover that had to include me as well. So what Janice wrote in there about having her yeses be her yeses and her no's be a no, so that she could discover what allowed her to flourish and thrive. That was beautifully said. And that's been part of my journey too. And quite a journey of discovery, even though it felt like I was getting beat about the head with a lot of circumstances that are not savory and not uplifting. But the result has been. And a long time ago, a minister that I listened to said, there's a big difference between truth and facts. Facts are facts, and they're changeable. Like, the grass is green. Well, it isn't always green. It turns brown in winter or whatever, depending on your area and your season. Because in my area, the grass is green and it grows in what we call winter. I'm mowing the lawn in December and January. But in the summer, it turns brown. So the facts evolve and change and shift. And it's good to pay attention to those things and note them. The truth is something else, but I think the problem is we try to make there be one truth for everybody. And that's not going to happen, nor should it. We're just not able to, if there is some great cosmic truth for everybody, which I doubt, we're just not evolved enough. So the second part of my vision I used to say, call it paradise on earth, but I'm starting to think either that's not quite right, or I'm not big enough to really go after that. I can hold it as a piece of my vision, but the real part is the joy and excitement of creativity and generativity that brings life. That's the real thing for me. It has showed up in my work of, being a therapist. But it's not about fixing people. It's just, what is that what would help unencumber you? What would have you see your magnificence? What would have you be set free into your creativity? And I guess I could say what grants you life. And then how do we do and be that all together? That's harder, because there's not one way. And, I think I am going to say this part. Tantra talks about being field centric, not people centric. And I thought about that, and I thought, I'm not sure it's one or the other. I think it can be both and that what looks like people centric is also field centric. And I think that's how I move and operate in the world, is I'm a both and in that regard. And I've come to really appreciate, that's not the right word. I find all of these complex truths in real simple things lately. Simple things like making sure the dishes get done, which I historically, I hate washing dishes, but suddenly, an organized kitchen area is really lovely. Getting my garden chores done and workable in a way that I can manage right now, so that the garden and I are fulfilling on each other. I've started to understand why monks of all kinds of, Buddhist monks, Christian monks, whatever they are, just have a very simple life. And I don't know what I'm going to do with that awareness, if anything. But it's helping me have energy energy from the very depths of the earth, the depths of my soul kind of thing, to keep being available to what would unencumber you, what would get the sticky stuff off of you, so you can just go be your magnificence, so you can see it, recognize it, embrace it, and live it. What would free up your creativity? And sometimes that might look like signing a petition at the grocery store, showing up at an event, a political event. Sometimes it might be sitting in a room with a client. I don't know. There's a lot of ways right now that I'm sort of amazed and flabbergasted at what's unfolding. And making a lot more peace with ebbs and flows and changes. A lot more peace with that. So I think there's probably a lot more I could say. And I wish I could say, I could articulate better if you could ask questions. But, which you're welcome to do. And we'll see how it goes. But I think that's what I have to say for now.
You can pass. You can pass the stick now.
Okay, Electra.
Well, thank you, Deb. Yeah, there's a lot more I would ask of you. You did a beautiful job. One of the things that this request to tell our story made me remember my story. And when Tantra mentioned her 3-year-old self, I thought, oh, 3 years old. At 3 years old, I like, like everybody likes to play school and you're the teacher and all the kids are supposed to do the work. I played church and I got to be the priest. And what I liked best about that was talking to the kids. And I still remember distinctly when one little boy came up to me and said, girls can't be priests, only guys can be. And how mad I was at him about that. And I gave up playing church. But that particular need to help people, to talk to people about what's important never ended. And the pissed off about men never having privilege never left either. So, but the other thing I remember at that point was that we lived in New Mexico, in Los Alamos, New Mexico. And one of the things our parents would do would take us to the Native American dances. And in that rhythmic dancing, I found my soul's beat. And it wasn't from a church, even though, we were taken to church every Sunday. It was in that dance. And I only knew that when I went to a program years later, probably in my 40s. And they said, well, we want everybody to be in the kind of the religion that they identify with. And so I obediently went to the Catholic one. And what I found, what rose when they went into the meditation, was the Indian dancing. So that rhythmic, deep, connected to earth and moving as a whole has probably moved through the rest of my life in a way I could not predict. And that's what I find interesting, is that we try and figure out what we're going to be or going to do, and we don't often realize the theme that's moving through our lives. So the next time, I remember something, I decided to marry this guy in the Navy, and we got sent to Hawaii. And I think I partially married him because we were going to go to Hawaii. Not in a rational way, but once I was in Hawaii, I did not want to live in base housing. I wanted to live in the community. And I got a job as a Head Start coordinator, which meant I had to be with the people of the island. And I had to learn the stories of the island. And that was home. And in that visit there, I discovered kind of what I would call my first earth home. And I went back there later on in my life because I had a journey to complete with the land of Hawaii and the people of Hawaii. And so aloha and is not just a word, it's a way of being. And your extended family is not just your indigenous family. That's not indigenous, I like that came up, but not your nuclear family. It's all the people you're connected with. And I learned that on my first time I was in Hawaii when I was in my early 20s. And I had to return. I did not return until I was in my 60s. And I was enveloped in that again. And there was something about the return visit that tied up my relationship with Pele, with the land, and with this sense of being part of an extended family of people that take care of each other. In the state of Hawaii, they build all their relationships and their governance through that concept. And so I'm always very interested in what is going on with the larger group. How can I impact not just an individual in relationship, but in a larger context? So there I am. The thing about living is that you don't know what you're doing when you're doing it, and you don't know why you're drawn to what you're drawn to. And I went on to run daycare centers for low income kids. I went on to be an adult educator through training in corporations. And this theme of groupings, of taking care of, not making sure the individuals did well and the whole did well. So it's always it's not just one or the other. So, and again, Tantra talks field centric and people centric. I know I'm paying attention to people, but I also know I'm paying attention to the well-being of the whole, and is the whole moving. And so when she said, okay, you got to talk about your life's journey, I thought, now this is really fascinating. I've been going through those two sides of it my whole life. Because it's kind of hard to explain it, but it is like a parallel life. You do what you have to do to make a living, right? So you heard what I did to make a living. And those jobs lived part of my vision, part of what I had to do in the world. But everything else, the volunteer work and the extra study work, all had to do with the rhythmic dance of the Indian. How can you be in spirit? How can you do it in a way that lives with the land? And I didn't know that. All I knew is that I was being drawn to certain things. I was in a Unitarian Universalist church for probably 25 years. And in that, at some point, I was the head of religious services, making sure all the Sundays were filled. And in that, I was an adult, making sure that adult education got expanded and deepened, and people were, it never can be just, oh, I've got to schedule things for people. It's got to be that they've got more going on with their lives, or they get a deeper experience. And I think I'm just sitting here going like, it goes back to the dance. It goes back to as they move around the circle, how can I bring that connection to people? And I remember, like, if there was one point in my life where I was reading all these books from all these science and economics and Native American, and I didn't know, why am I reading these? Why is this eclectic thing going on? And then all of a sudden I started to see the threads through them, and I ended up giving several services at the church. So it's this need in myself to see the connection, and the need then to bring those connections to others. Eventually, what happened to me was, I think I was both a seeker and kind of recalcitrant, or I wasn't quite so sure I wanted to do this. So I think when I was in Hawaii, I took EST. So, and then when I moved back to the States, to the mainland, I continued with it, and then I stopped. And then I would dabble in meditation. And then finally the day came, and I felt like there was this lot of this pressure on me. And it was from spirit. And I was going like, oh, okay, I'll step in. I'll step in. With the thought in the back of my head, oh, I can always go back to my old way of living. Which was, of course, never true, because I never did stop. And the path there then moved out to, I spent a lot of time working with Brooke Medicine Eagle, and went out to visit her in Montana. I went into Qigong from her stuff. I became a Qigong instructor of the basic forms of healing Da Qigong. Then I was a trainer and other stuff at this time that's going on. Well, one of the things that happened to me was I was lucky enough to be let go from the training job, because me and corporations really aren't a really good fit. So because I care more about the people than the corporation. So, but I saw this ad for massage school, and I read their ad because they were going to have an open house, and I'd never thought of massage. I never particularly wanted to massage people. And, but I read the ad and I said, those are my people. And at the same time, there was an ad for an energy school. And I said, those sound like my people too. So I went to both open houses. I ended up going into both programs simultaneously. And I graduated from massage school. And then I graduated from energy healing school. And I went into private practice. And I had a private practice for 15 years in Northern Virginia that had massage, energy work, and cranial sacral work. And then that moved into the spiritual mentoring work that I do now. So right now I live in Colorado and I do cranial sacral therapy, but what I learned in those schools and in the 15 years was how to be present with a person in their field in a way that their system could inform me about what was needed, not this brain, even though the brain remembered the protocols and all of that stuff. And again, if you go back and you listen to, and now I'm listening to it, I can hear the thump of the Indian dance. What does it mean to stand? And I'm getting chills all over my body as I'm thinking about this. That's what I was after. And I think I'm still after that. Is how can I bring that sense of oneness and that sense of connection to the work that I do with others. Primarily right now, I am retired from the world of training and active body work. What happened was it 12 years ago, 10 years ago. Anyway, I found out about Tantra. I read the book, The Irish Tale of a Mystic, Modern Mystic. What was
Yeah, Irish Tale of a Modern Mystic.
I got it, good. Well, anyway, I said, this lady has access to something that I want. Because I was still frustrated in all that work I was doing, I still didn't have the access I wanted to the more. And in working with Tantra, with the templates of the language of creation, I found that access point. And that's when I became the head of the Language of Consciousness Institute. And that's how I ended up here on Create a World, because I've been working with her since then. But it's fascinating to me. If you had asked me last week, what was the theme of my life? I did not know. It was the dance of connection to the land and to the people. So that's my story for now. Thank you.
Pass the stick.
Okay, Victoria.
Thank you, Electra. I started body movement, when I was 5, 6 years old, through a community boys club of America. So I'm kind of part boy, part girl, I think, in that sense of community. And through various experience of dance as a kid, I was also guided to be like a teacher in training for the young kids. And this was, if you're aware of the boys clubs of America and now the girls clubs, they didn't exist back then. they gave a place for people in the community that wouldn't naturally have a place for dance because of location, finances, cultural diversity. So we had everything in this space. And that was my first, I became a student teacher to the lead teachers as a teenager. That was my first recognition of myself leading and having an impact on others through movement. And alongside that, growing up as a kid in this world, having a place felt excruciatingly difficult at times. And so movement was that inner impulse, that inner listening gave me the access point in the world because I grew up as a sentient listener, sentient being. And I didn't find out until I was an adult that other people don't listen the way I listen necessarily. And I got fascinated with that in my 20s and started an exploration of the various ways you get access to the energy, the soul nature, the more of who I am as a human sentient being. And I've always loved listening to other people's stories too, whether it's through movement or through the voice. And through that awareness, I've always listened in myself what I'm being called to. And still to this day, I'll be 62 a week from tomorrow. So I'm in a new recognition of who I am now too. Social Security. I'm a Social Security girl now, right? So in that, what I've discovered is that my capacities for listening started early, naturally, and I've been interested my whole life through various work experiences that I've placed myself in on purpose. I put myself in to exploring energy, exploring yoga movement, and teaching yoga for 20 some years now. And I also put myself into listening one-on-one and in small groups with people in the therapy world from the body, listening from the body to tell the story so that the mind can have more access to the fullness of their story, as well as what's the next version of that story for them. Like, how do I make the story more of what I want it to be rather than what it has been, and move beyond circumstance into who I am more fully. So I've used the experiences of working as a way to support people in accessing their own sentient natures, their own listening to the calling that's from within them to follow their hearts, to follow the movements. And I was just reflecting a little bit ago how movement has been the vision, the guidance of my life, from practicing various movement, from dance to yoga, ecstatic dance, Sufi dance, all different kinds. And then I started recognizing I have physically moved to 6 different states over my lifetime on purpose. Each one was following the calling. And I've recently moved here to New Mexico. I don't know if it's my last place or not. I just know that in this moment, I am here with a purpose in fulfilling my mission to open people up to their nature as a soul, human, sentient being. And the form of that is awaiting a new recursion of that here in New Mexico. And I'm exploring those possibilities. I am looking at getting my license for therapy work in New Mexico. I have some work to do with the structures and the systems that say you got to pay here, then you come here and pay here, and so I've got to do both states, get completely instated. And so it's a matter of choosing to use my resources in the way that serves me. Whether I sit with clients again, I don't know, but I know that that's part of the process of unfolding what's next. And I do have to share, I recently met someone here. I'm loving hearing the stories of different people in different places. And I met a woman perchance the other day in a store, and we chatted for a few moments. And I'm hoping to get to know her and actually have her come share her story here on Create a World. So maybe I better not say too much, because I just want it held in the field to have her story shared. And part of me being the vision of a sentient human being soul expression is recognizing visionaries in other people that I meet. I feel like I recognize who my visionary people are, and I can feel their presence with me. And I'm like, oh, I want to share you with the world. So I have a couple of people I've met that I want to share on Create a World. I think that's part of the vision of who I am, is I recognize other visionaries and I want to share them. I don't want the secrets of visionaries. I want them to go noticed in the world. Let me see if there's anything else. Yes. One other piece that I have found that has been especially important to guiding my vision is that how I operate in the world is in relationship with others. I've been in a relationship for 35 years, and I've listened to how to be more in the capacity of my soul being in a human form from being in that relationship. And how holding relationship sacred can invite the soul to emerge and be that sentient nature fully, move with oneself fully, and honor each other in that. I'm complete. Tag, you're it, Laurie.
Last but not least, I so appreciate today and the sharing of the stories. My whole life has been curiosity. And as a kid, the freedom to explore, especially in nature, and just be out and like, ooh, what's under that rock? What's, what's on top of that little mountain, or rock formation in my backyard. It's been an opportunity to always be connected with the more. And it's very it's interesting to me how my emotion is rising, because I'm like, I can tell you my story, like boom, 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 like this is what happened here and this is what happened there, and I didn't want to do that. So that sharing the essence of my being is it happens in waves. And when I feel in the space of no agenda, or just like equanimity, there's we're all just here, right? Then it creates an opportunity for me to tap into the depth that's within me. And very much like what Victoria was saying, I believe we all have that. We all have the ability to go in and to be with the essence of who we are. And it's interesting how, listening, and Tantra, when you first started speaking about the visionary, I spent much of my life alone exploring, and that was cool. I knew that there was more out there. Like, I always had my imaginary school people, Electra, and all of that. I'd read my books to them and everything. And I would tap into that imaginary or that visionary way of being through reading. I was an avid reader. So, just hearing the different stories, whether they were nonfiction or fiction or whatever stories, I would pick it up, and I had a humongous library. And as the years went on, my reading shifted, and I discovered that, wow, the visionaries were in the books that I were reading. And then, wouldn't you know, there'd be a person that would show up that was saying what my book was saying. And I was like, wow, there's a real person that, like, that I could have contact with. And I'm like, that, it just created an opportunity to be in the more, to be in that curiosity of, I think I know what I know, and I trust what I know, and that's the truth. And is there something else? So being in that expanded capacity to, navigate that, sometimes it was easy, sometimes it wasn't so easy. That's like led me, or that not led me, that's like been with me my entire life. And the beautiful dynamic of my own family has really afforded me the opportunity to be in that duality aspect of the humanness. One side of the family was this way, the other side of the family was total opposite, so I got the experience of being in the both and I lived on a 100-acre farm in the country. We were talking about being country. I think I'm a little country. And then I moved into suburb of New York City in Connecticut, and that's like total opposite. And they're like, didn't know how to, be with me, or I didn't know how to be with them really. And I would hang out with all like the riffraff, if you would, playing hacky sack in the courtyard. If you don't know what that is, it's a little ball that you juggle like a soccer player. And I'd be wearing a dress and as I would do this, and I'm like, well, I don't care. That's who I am, right? And the older I got, and the more I experienced my own way of being in the world, I'm slowly trying to be more comfortable with that. And, it's just funny having people in the back of my mind, like negating, or I remember very distinctly, I was like, I had a family member, like I was saying something and they're like, you're so idealistic. Idealistic is not like, you can't operate in this world with that frame of mind. And I'm like, well, that's I just like switch my languaging. That's my visionary. It's my idealism. And it's like, create what you want to create, right? So that's been a whole theme throughout my life. And then the movement on top of that. I've always been a mover. I've, been adventurous, climbing mountains and backpacking and dancing, and just it allows that very much like what you said, Electra, that rhythm, it's just innate in me. And then there's, like the quirky celebratory, like, it can't get any worse than what it is. I'm like, it's got to be better on the other side. So I hold all of that. And I really, really like to support people in finding their own juice, to find their own expression of how they choose to show up in the world. And it's possible, and when we are able to be in the story as a story and not the truth, like you said, Tantra, just the experience of the last few moments, the last few years, the last few decades, or whatever. I'm the baby of the group. I'm gonna be 56 at the end of this month. So or at the end of June. And I see such a like difference from like what the age is, and I don't age is but a number, right? People ask me, I have to like, hold on, let me calculate it. So there's so many different ways of showing up for ourselves, myself, yourself, we're, all of us showing up for each other. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's how can we keep attaching to, or not attaching to, that's not the word I want, but how can we keep embracing the life rather than the of the story? Like what's the evolutionary process, the growth, the dynamic evolution of where you are right now, and then what is possible for years to come, or the next moment, or what have you. And we all have the capability of expanding ourselves into that tapestry. And I've had different communities in my life that have supported me in that. Some more energetically and generative, some more through the process of moving through grief in a resilient way of really saying what needs to be said so the head and the heart match rather than operating from the head. And those pivotal times in my life have shaped me, and they are a foundation to be with what's happening next. You know, the next recurrent, whatever's happening next, there's the tool. There's tools, there's experience, there's community. And for me, that's my offer in the world. You know, that's my contribution. And, you know, if you want to be in your light, in your brightness, in your radiance, and still like be in the history, yeah, but let your light shine. You know, we all can do it. We all can do it. And I'm an example. And it's not always perfect. So I don't know if I have anything else. Let's see. Oh, and I'll just add part of visionary aspect. I envision a lot, and I'm more in the organizational aspect of operating. So my husband, we've been together for 20, it'll be 21 years. And we have a home in Costa Rica also. So for 20 years, I've been envisioning myself in Costa Rica, you know, and really offering and allowing that community to expand to there also. And I'm just putting it out into the field to make it real because it's like, ugh, it's such a passion, and it's such a deep, deep, deep resonance with the sensations I felt as a child on the 100-acre farm. So thanks for listening.
I think the only phrase I have is I feel fed. Deb, did you want to add something?
I want to add a lot of things. I don't know if I can do it in 2.5 minutes.
Well, we might go over. It's 3 minutes.
Okay. One is I've heard a lot in the group about rhythm, but that's not what I want to add. This is the beginning of your birthday celebration. And this conversation brings me full circle. Because when I met you, I was at a point of, listening to you, Lori, and I had to really laugh at I was also one of those ones of, let me look under this rock and, oh, wow, if this is the instructions, well, what would happen if you did it this way? And, that kind of constant exploring. And, so I'd had a lot of indication that all these things are possible. Well, if you're idealistic, great. How does that work in the world? How does that operate? If you're street smart, wow, that's cool. Tell me about that. How does that work in the world for you? All these things. And that all that moved through me was possible and real. And I'd hit a spot where there was so much resistance everywhere I looked, everywhere I went, even amongst the people, because at that point I was a clinical social worker at a pretty cool program for youth to interrupt the cycles of what existed in the world back then that was not helpful to youth. And even there, it was more of going through the motion. And I just said, if you gave me all this, God, and all this knowing and awareness, but it's not out there anywhere, then this is not a good deal. We were having an argument. And I said, connect me with people that you got to connect me. You got to connect me with something somewhere where it's not just me. And there were a whole bunch of it's a really cool story how I met Tantra, but that's another time. And I got introduced to Tantra and some other people that knew her and had worked with her. And the interesting part is, at that moment, she was really broken. And probably would not have lasted much longer. But the connection of the accumulation of my I can't go any furtherness with her I can't go any furtherness, but both of us continuing to try to do that. And something remarkable happened, not just for ourselves, but like you see, when you see a picture in the movies of the bomb of a bomb radius, it was like that. And except not of destruction, but of construction, of creation, of generativity. And I didn't really understand that till this minute. So happy birthday, Tantra. And thank you for being. And the completeness of your happy birthdayness would be to say to everybody, thank you for being. And thank you for sorting out who you are and what you have to bring. But don't spend too much time sorting out who you are, unless that's your journey. Sort out how to activate what you bring. That's happy birthday, Tantra.
Thank all of you so much. This is what I wanted for my birthday. Deb is right. When she met me as a personality, I was definitely broken.
Yeah.
I just had this powerful talent that just kept roaring through me.
Right.
And I think one of the visionary moments that we're in as human beings is it isn't enough just to self-sacrifice on behalf of a greater system. It's we have to be part of that system.
Yeah.
And that system is wholeness. And I'll end our talk today with my daughter on her 12th birthday. I took her to New York City. She wanted to see the Rockettes. She wanted to see Tommy. And she wanted to see one other that I can't remember right now. And I was on the aisle. My daughter was beside me and Tommy. And there was a very well-dressed man next to my daughter. And Tommy he sings this song. And he says, all of you want to be like me, but I want to be like you. And she tugged the guy's coat. And the guy looked down at her and she said, that's my mommy. So I have a 77th birthday that I never thought I'd make. And without all of you letting me know what it is to be human. and its beauty. I probably would have just come back to the ethers where I fundamentally belong. So happy birthday, world. May we have what we envision, and may it be so.